Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari for the Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're blessed to always be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you are not listening to Wes and Blake Silverman over on the Pin Down on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should be. Also, if you are not reading Omari Sankofa II and our guest Shawn Windsor on the Detroit Free Press, you absolutely should be. And shameless plug, if you are not subscribed to the Motor City Hoops Substack, which is absolutely free, I highly recommend it. I am not only doing the game breakdowns, but I'm also doing some video breakdowns. I have a Cade Cunningham ball screen. I have a Cade Cunningham game one. And then not long after this podcast is finished, there will be an Ausar Thompson versus the Los Angeles Clippers breakdown as well. A couple real quick notes, guys, before we bring Shawn in and start to get into this episode. I need to correct a couple things that I think both were things I said, Omari, on the last episode. The step-in rule, it actually only looks forward. So when the 2025 draft is over, the Pistons will have access to their 2026 NBA draft pick. So as soon as the draft is over, they would be able to trade like 26, 28, 30, 32. We talked a lot about the offseason last episode. I wanted to correct that. Had some people reach out and correct me. And just a little side note, as we talked about cap space, Fontecchio does make low enough money. He could be traded into somebody's non-tax MLE. So I talked about how the Nets are the only team with cap space. Technically, the non-tax MLE is something that could be used to get off Fontecchio if Trajan wanted to go down the cap space route. But we don't need to talk about the offseason, Shawn, because the team is good right now, and this team is fun to talk about right now. So Omari told me you were in the building. You were at LCA last night, Shawn. Really impressive win, in my opinion, over the Clippers. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't want to say they were sluggish to start because you could tell they were competing. And so the energy was there, or they wanted the energy to be there, even if it wasn't quite there. And they were missing shots a little bit early. But beyond that, too, the Clippers, and I know they're missing Norm Powell, or they were missing Norm Powell and Kawhi Leonard. But that team is so well coached. Ty Lue's one of the best in the business. He's always been a really good defensive coach. And obviously they added Jeff Van Gundy. They just, despite the lack of a lot of great individual defenders on the team, they just compete. They're tough. And it's funny to say with James Harden out there and Bogdanovich now, but they know where they're supposed to be. Cade Cunningham talked about getting grabbed and held and all that sort of thing. But it's a veteran team, a physical team, a good defensive team in the terms of, being where they're supposed to be and all that sort of stuff. To sort of fight through that on a back-to-back, and I know the Clippers, I think, were on a back-to-back too, but to fight through that, to sort of absorb the couple of runs the Clippers made and then find a way to win somewhat comfortably in the end, to me, that was super, super impressive.
Real quick, Omari, Harry and Mickey in the chat. Shout out to our guys, Order of the Blazing Horse. And Mickey says, Shawn has one of the best voices in the game. Could listen to this dude read the phone book. So, Shawn, people don't even care what you say, man. The way you say it is impressive. Not that what you say isn't really good and really important as well.
It has nothing to do with what I say.
All right. Go ahead, O2. Go ahead.
Shawn, first of all, congrats on attending your first Pistons win of the season.
Wait, hold on. Is that true?
That is true.
Wow.
That is true.
The last game was that the Cleveland game?
Yeah, the last game was the Cleveland game, which was a great game. And, the Darius Garland shot, right? And
yeah,
the fact that they tied that game up, though, was sort of a miracle. A bunch of free throws and a couple of mistakes by Cleveland. But anyway, yeah, no, first I think that was my 6th game last night. And I want to say it was the first time I've seen him win.
Yeah, because you went to a game like 2 weeks before that one, too, and that might have been a game that they should have won that didn't.
Yes, and I'm trying to remember who that was. Well, I saw them lose.
Was that Charlotte?
No, they lost to Golden State.
They lost to Golden State. Maybe it was Golden State.
Yeah, and then they lost to Indiana, I want to say. Yeah, anyway, I can't remember all the losses, but, it's crazy for the way they're winning, right?
Yeah, 7 in a row is crazy. Yeah, they're 32 wins now. Like that was like the best case scenario for like the season. And I'm pretty sure they still have 24 games left. But last night, that game just felt so slow. And it's just because of I just think the physical battle going back and forth, but to not only be able to sit down for your first win, but I think a win that really just kind of showed how mentally tough this team is. And, this is probably I don't know, we've had you on the pod a lot. This is probably the first time we could talk about resiliency for this Pistons team. But I guess what kind of stuck out, just with how they were able to kind of withstand those blows. And then they really only had maybe a 5-minute stretch of, life in the third quarter. I mean, that's all it really took for them to close that out. Just what did you think of them just from a resiliency standpoint?
No, they're showing, to me, it's a combination of resiliency and swag. They're starting to develop a little bit of a swag. No, there were a few things that stood out to me last night, and I want to mention them all right here because I want to talk through this with you guys. But I'll start with, this is a tough one. I'm going to start with Cunningham because that game last night is the kind of game. Look, he and it's funny because was it Koo that asked him after the game about getting in, the float game and kind of getting away from the mid range and so forth. And you could tell by Cade's answer that he loves taking the mid range, right? But he's got analytics people in his ears and just the whole the NBA basketball world right now in general, the math of it all. So that's fine. I think that mid range is going to serve him well because we have no idea how this league is about to change in the next few years, but it's going to change. It's a business, and there are too many fans up there that are frustrated with the way the ball is played right now. So I think that mid-range is going to be great for him. But that aside, he got to the line. He did not in Atlanta, and he got to the line last night. He had a much better whistle, but he wasn't foul hunting. This whole idea of him and ethical hoops and the Pistons playing his ethical. I think we talked about this last time I was on the pod a little bit, but he got a line 12 times. He made 10 of them. He actually, you look at his numbers and people might think, well, it's not that efficient. He's 9 for 22? That's 2 shots away from 50% from the field. That's how I like to think. It's like when a baseball, remember, I don't know, you guys are probably too young for some of the old baseball movies where the speech is about, one infield hit, one bunt, one this, and all of a sudden you're hitting 300 instead of 260. Well, to me, it's similar with basketball. 9 for 22 is not a bad deal. Plus he was 4 from 9 from the three. So he did kind of what he talked about after the game, right? He took 9 threes and got into the lane a lot. He missed some early, but I just felt like,
and the shot difficulty too
was extreme. Yeah, no, pulling up off the bounce on the three. The one he hit at the end of the second quarter. I can't remember if that was over Zubac or Bogdanovic, where he was getting a little. You could tell he was a little annoyed at that point. The behind the back dribble step back, but just his flow and feel. And if he's going to start getting a little better whistle, then you're going to see him get 32 on a night when he's not shooting lights out. You know what I mean? And that really stood out. What did you guys think?
I want to continue to talk about Cade, but Shawn, I also want to ask real quick. They played a back-to-back, won both games. And have you ever seen 2 differently played basketball games in your life on back-to-back nights? They go to Atlanta and play this up and down game in the 130s or whatever, where not a whole lot of defense. That game was super weird because, listen, I love Dyson Daniels, but he couldn't guard Cade. And that was really evident with the start of the second half when they're doubling Cade before half court. And then you come to the next night and Detroit has to play the game completely different, Shawn. Now they have to play like this very physical, tough, active hands, help defense, Clippers team. And it's, barely in the hundreds. And I think that's what stood out to me. Like, people have called me out because I haven't been ready to say this is a good team yet. And I wanted to see this stretch post All-Star game. I've never felt better about calling them a good team than I am watching them win back-to-back games on back-to-back nights that were completely different. Because winning in different ways, Shawn, you know this, you covered the league forever, is important. You have to be able to win in different ways. And they showed that in a 2-game span.
They did, and here's the other thing too. Atlanta they're frisky at least, right? And
sure,
they can score as they showed what was that Sunday night, I guess, when the Pistons were down there. And the Clippers, again, missing folks, but they're a playoff team. They've been a playoff team without Kawhi. Norman Powell was probably in some ways the bigger absence, right? And because they were in a bit of a slog themselves offensively. You know what I think about this? And this is going to sound crazy, maybe like a hot take, and I hate to step into this because Omari will tell you we have somebody on our staff that enjoys hot takes.
We need the hot takes, Shawn. Come on.
I know. Well, the reason I was thinking about this, though, is that somebody that worked for the Pistons last night I was talking to said this team reminds them a little bit of the 2002 team 2002, 2003 is before they got Rasheed, when they were starting to get good. And I understand why they think that, why they say that, but I don't see that. I mean, maybe in terms of just the natural evolution and ascension of a young team getting better. Yes, although that team was not put together anywhere near the same. It wasn't a drafted team, basically outside of Tayshaun among their starters. To me, what you're talking about, Bryce, and this is going to sound crazy, they remind me of the Bad Boys. And it's not the defense per se, but the Bad Boys, that group could go out and score 130 points. That team is criminally underrated offensively. And then they could go out and thump you in the head and win 90 to 85 or whatever, right? But they could do that on back-to-back nights because they had such, I watched this team start to flow a little bit right now. And to me, their DNA goes back 30 some years and not 20 or 35 years, just in the combination of toughness and athleticism and skill. The go into work group, they were really good. I mean, obviously they won a title. They were great for that era, but they weren't skilled like this group is in a way. And to me, the Bad Boys combined skill, and that allowed them to go chest up with people one night and run you off the floor the next by dropping jumpers all over the place or post players back in that era. But that's what this reminds me of a little bit.
An organic Bad Boys comparison. That, like you said, hot. Yeah, we're in that territory now. Okay,
listen,
cool.
They're on a 7-game win streak.
They have won 7 straight.
They've won 7 straight. They've won 8 out of 10. We watched them win 14 games last year. I feel like we want to be very level-headed on the Pistons pulse, right? Like, this is kind of our thing. But people come listen to us because I think we don't get hot. I don't care. Like, let's go crazy, because if there's a time to do it, it's now. And you know what? It could flip just the other way. They could lose 7 straight, and then we're going, man, wish we would have, knock on wood.
Can I just? I don't know if they're going to be a title team. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if they'll ever make a conference finals, but just what they're building in the youth and the way they can play in the different styles, they got some talent, man. And arguably their second best offensive player has been out for 2 months, right?
No, I mean, that's one thing I always bring up whenever we have the Cade All-NBA argument. I threw this at Sam Vecini on Game Theory. I said, Sam, who's the second best player on the Pistons? And this is what happened. Silence, just like that, because nobody has the answer. But I think it's like credit to him, but also all of these other guys bring their own roles. You know what I mean, Omari? So sorry, I kind of hijacked your point there.
No, I was just going to say, last night's game, and they've come more and more infrequently, I would say. I think, especially with Tobias stepping up, I think the Pistons have been able to problem solve not having Ivy more than they did initially. But yeah, the first 20 minutes of last night's game was very much they could really use somebody else who could just generate something other than Cade right now, because Cade was really having to fight for every bucket as he did, against Atlanta Sunday night. Which, by the way, somebody in the comments mentioned it. Every time the Pistons play Atlanta, I feel like Dyson Daniels is like 6'4", and he's 6'7". Like, it's just something about that matchup where Cade just tends to make some of these guys look a lot smaller. Anyway, with that aside over with, it's interesting. It's been interesting to see how this team's been able to overcome J.I. not being here without guys being able to step up. Like, Tobias had 20 points. He was 9 for 12 last night. Like, we've seen Tobias with other guys step into that role.
Tobias had really big buckets, especially during the middle of the game whenever they were struggling to score. I want to give Cade's numbers over the last 10, and then Shawn, I want you to give us some of the other driving forces behind what we've seen these last 10 games. Cade Cunningham, over his last 10 games, 29 points, 6 rebounds, 9.9 assists, 2 stocks, less than 4 turnovers on 48, 38, 92, shooting almost 7 threes a game and almost 6.5 free throws a game. This man will be all NBA. That discussion is over. The only discussion around Cade Cunningham and all NBA is if he'll be second team or third team. And guys, if he continues to play like this, there may be a crazier conversation because the number 5 spot is completely open. But Shawn, we give Cade Cunningham his flowers a lot. What else has been a driving force? Like, what else stands out to you? You've mentioned the swagger, you've mentioned the energy, you've mentioned the role, like what is there a player? It's something JB has done. What has stood out to you that's driven this, these 10 games, this 8-2 stretch, 7 in a row?
Just real quickly, it's the comparison I make. It's the organic quality that seems to suit this area. And by the way, when's the last time this team had a first team all NBA level point guard? It wasn't Chauncey.
Yeah.
As great as he was. You got to go a little further back. And then the guy right next to him, kind of quiet and unassuming. Okay, one's from Louisiana. This guy's from Indiana, or I think he's from Indiana, right? I mean,
he's from Indiana.
Yeah. Again, I'm not saying that Jaden Ivey's Joe Dumars. He doesn't defend like him yet, and I don't know if he ever will. But there's just something about, I don't know, is Thompson, Rodman. It's almost uncanny when you just start thinking about the psychology of what they're doing, and they're fun to watch. Speaking of this, to your question, Bryce, I don't know what's more impressive. Ausar Thompson. What did Cunningham say about him the other night? Omari, he said he checked himself. He started to say, how did he put it? He said something like this. Then we got Ausar Thompson out there, and he is basically a defense unto himself. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but so that's a huge part of this last 10 games, right? I mean, in his own way, he's as thrilling to watch as Cunningham. What he did against the Clippers, the blocks, the recoveries, obviously the things he started to do offensively, just chesting up Harden. Harden was like 5 for Harden wanted nothing to do with him. You know what I mean? Right. And rightly so, but the way he was chesting him up. So I look at that, and then I think about Jalen Duren. And the passing, and I know this wasn't against the Clippers, but he had a maybe you can help me out here, Omari. He had a game recently where there was space in the middle of the floor near the nail. He goes there, and I'm trying to remember who had the ball on the wing, and he clapped to him. He did a little clap because he wanted the ball. He got the ball, and then on the weak side, he knew whoever was over there, and maybe it was Thompson. Or maybe it was Cunningham actually.
Cade is the one that received the pass.
Yeah, it was Cunningham on the weak side because he knew if he filled that space, got the ball, Cunningham was going to cut behind him, and then he slipped, I want to say, with his left hand. I'm not right.
It was all in one move. And I forget who was up in the corner. It might have been Beasley or somebody. But yeah, time was running out. He clapped. He knew Cade had space to cut. So he got the ball. But it started with him recognizing, there's an opening at the nail. I'm going to go fill it. So he's seeing that 2-3 steps ahead. I mean, that's crazy. We're like he solved that possession just with that one move. Yeah,
exactly. And sequenced it out in his head. So never mind the fact that he's getting a little bit better defensively. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I like that or that fadeaway that I got texts about the other night. Was that in Atlanta, Omari?
Yeah, that was late against Atlanta.
He drove under the hoop and ended up on the baseline and stopped, 10 feet, 10 feet, and turned around and hit a fadeaway shot off the dribble. I've never seen him do that. He's 21 years old. Look, this
just turned 21 last fall.
This isn't a title team, but you know what? Let's be real. There's some talent right here. And maybe they just got that lucky. I've heard Bryce say and make a really, really good point on this show a couple of weeks ago about how often does a team really hit on their draft picks? Almost never. But when they do, then you get Golden State.
Yeah.
Right. Or you get Oklahoma City with Harden. I mean, a young Oklahoma City, right? Or the current Oklahoma City. Well, that's not quite the same because they got Shea in a trade, but you know what I mean? That's what you get. You get the Spurs adding Ginobili and Parker to Duncan. I'm not saying that's what this is happening, but teams occasionally hit on their picks. And when I watched that fadeaway the other night, a baseline for Duren, and then the sequencing against the Clippers, we're like, what is he going to be?
It's funny because as we talk about these guys being good players, this comes up. At some point, if this thing continues this way and organically it builds out, we're all going to have to give Troy Weaver credit for at least that, right? We can still say he didn't put the right roster around Cade, which I don't think he did, but he is the one that drafted Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Ausar Thompson, and I know nobody wants to give him Cade Cunningham credit for that, but he didn't mess it up. And we've seen GMs mess it up. So we're still a long ways from there, but eventually it may have to be a little bit of love for Troy. All right, we need to go to break because go ahead, Shawn. We'll get you.
I wrote that last week and took some crap from people who already have people. They don't want to hear that. They're showing the roster from a year ago. I'm like, yeah, no. Of course, the roster was terrible. The cap space, the trades, his obsession with bigs. I mean, there are 10 things, right? We can't blame him for Monty Williams, but was the guy he wanted going to be a whole lot better? I don't know.
Yep.
But the one thing he did do was potentially gather four starters that could eventually be part of a contending team. That's crazy.
And listen, what's the most important thing? What do you have to get first before anything else?
Luck.
You got to, but you got to get dudes, Shawn. You got to have dudes that can hoop on the floor, and then you figure out some of the other stuff. So, all right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, O2, take us where you want. I know people want to talk about Stewart and his defense and him coming off the bench. We definitely need to talk about Schröder while Shawn is here. We'll get into whatever you want, O2, once we get back from this short break.
All right, we are back with segment
Hold on. I'm sorry, O2. Kevin, with all due respect, and I appreciate you being here very much, these were not all consensus picks. Jalen Duren definitely was not. And I'm not saying Jalen Duren's going to map out. A Min was consensus number 4. Ausar was not consensus number 5. So with all due respect to you, Kevin, I cannot agree that those were all consensus picks. So
Neither was Cade. There were plenty of people that thought Mobley. There are people in the league right now that still think Mobley might end up being the better player right now. I mean, you watch what he's doing in Cleveland, right? I mean, that was
I think it's a fair debate. Mobley's doing, he's had
been really good.
Crazy great season.
He's listen, Mobley's going to finish second in DPOY now that Wemby's out. I assume Jaren Jackson Jr. wins it, but Mobley will be right there. Mobley might end up all NBA with all the injuries. So I wanted to address that real quick. Again, Kevin, I respect you. I respect your opinion. Thank you for being here and listening. I do not agree that all of those picks were consensus with what we're talking about. So anyway, O2, go ahead.
We could open up wherever. Dennis Schröder obviously was the guy who was the highlight of the deadline. He's still getting acclimated, but I think we've also seen how he can problem solve for that second unit. Shawn, just what did you see from Schröder, not just last night, but just through the 2 weeks he's been here so far?
Just the way he gets up into people. I mean, he's not shooting obviously right now, and he didn't shoot in Golden State, and it does make you wonder a little bit. I mean, if Brooklyn was an aberration, I think that's the best he's shot in years, but he's a better shooter for his career than what he showed in Golden State and what he showed so far here. So I think that will level up, but just the way he gets up into people, right? I love the way, I love the way he chests up, and it doesn't matter how much bigger they are, and he's not afraid with the ball in his hands late. You saw that in Atlanta when he got the and one to more or less, you thought, seal the game, right? And then the other thing too is I like the way I watch him on the bench. I watch him when he makes a pass or somebody else makes a pass or a move when he's out on the floor. I watch the way he celebrates. If there's a moment to celebrate, if there's a dead ball or a foul after the bucket or whatever, or timeout. And the way, the affection he's got with these guys clearly already. And you can see they feel that way about him because he competes. They've done that well all year, but who was it that Cunningham was talking about the other night? They struggle a bit early on with back-to-backs. They're still to a degree learning how to, as he said, come with it. I think was the phrase Cunningham used after the Clippers game. And Schröder brings that. He comes with it. That's never been in question for him. That'd be great if that 3 falls. To me, he's would be well just to hit the elbow jumper that he's made a living on, that and getting to the rim, which he's done some, and finishing a little bit better. But it's the defense. It's the way he controls. You can see he's starting to direct traffic. He did some against the Clippers, and that's all critical. And those are things that Sasser, just all due respect, doesn't do as well. You would just trade off a little bit of shooting there from distance, but everything else Schröder does better.
Let me give you a play-by-play from the end of the third quarter last night when Cade goes to the bench, guys. The Pistons are up 1. First play is actually a ridiculous play from Ausar Thompson to create a second chance opportunity. Guess who makes the pass to Ausar on the ensuing baseline out of bounds? Dennis Schröder. Then there's free throws from Derrick Jones Jr., followed by Schröder getting fouled, getting to the free throw line. Stu makes a really nice play on a Harden floater. I think he actually blocked it, which is crazy. Guess who finds Harris in transition with a kick-ahead pass? Dennis Schröder. Some other stuff happens. Harris gets a 3-point make off a driving kick from Dennis Schröder. Stu with another block, followed by Dennis Schröder scoop floater. And what are the Pistons up to start the fourth quarter with Cade sitting? They are now up 9 points after being up 1. It's unbelievable that even with the percentages, and Shawn, can you tell the story that you told before we recorded about the jumper? Because I do think it's important and matters. He's doing exactly what they need him to do, especially in the non-Cade minutes. But guys, he's also playing with Cade at times which it makes him even more valuable. Everybody, I don't know if everybody noticed, but with Fontecchio out last night, nobody entered the rotation. Everybody else just picked up a few more minutes, or various guys picked up a few more minutes. But Shawn, can you tell the story about Schröder's jump shot? Because it is a little bit concerning that he hasn't been able to make, especially the three-pointer.
Yeah, so where I was sitting with the media seats for the non-beat writers, the beat writers sit on the court, and we sit just over the tunnel where the players come in and out of the locker rooms, obviously. And they're great seats. And so if you're looking at the basket that's the home basket in the second half for the Pistons, I guess home and Pistons, that's redundant, sorry. But anyway, so it's a perfect angle if somebody's shooting a three-pointer from the left side of the court, from the left wing. And he shot one of them from there, maybe two of them from there, and they were both way offline. It wasn't a matter of being too short with his legs or maybe a bit amped up and be a little bit too long. They were just really, really offline. And you're thinking, okay, you're thinking at that point, you're almost over. When you see a shot like that, unless it's a total air ball, you know that you're in your head a little bit. What impressed me though, and to your point, which you just ran down the list of plays at the end of the third, one of those came a little bit later in the fourth, one of those threes, maybe both of them did. And he got the ball after either the first or the second one, after those bad misses. And he had the ball on the right side, drove down the baseline and kicked it to, I want to say Beasley for a three. There was a huge, huge three maybe to push it back to 8 or 7. This was later in the game, later in the fourth. So he's still making plays. He said, okay, fine. My shot's broken from out there right now. So what? I'm still confident enough to drive down and kick it out.
Omari, what are your thoughts on Schröder and what he's brought to this team?
Yeah, second unit just needed a live ball problem solver, right? Like somebody who could just organize and direct and, keep things from stagnating. And like even with his current percentages, like even if those percentages did not budge, like I think he's still been a net positive for this group just with his passing and with his defense too. He's somebody who can really hold his own on that end. You watch him like kind of match up against Trae Young, and he's somebody that can match up against, just his speed and quickness. And, that's something that lifts the second unit. He's just come in and even, essentially coming in mid-season with, no preseason or anything else. He's already shown chemistry with Beasley and some of the other guys in that group. And with 24 games left, I'm curious to see how his role continues to evolve and, how comfortable they are with him just in different scenarios. They haven't hesitated to put him and Cade on the court together to close games out. Like already you see what they want from him. So yeah, if that shot comes, then again, you're just going to continue to plug the hole that he's plugged substantially already just with his defense and passing.
Mickey says Dennis costs us less than nothing, right? And as Chuck says, essentially cap space. We kind of ran this down a little bit because, listen, Trajan did exactly what I was hoping he would do, which was he thread the needle by adding the player that made sense while also getting some draft capital. They still ended up with, I think, right net of 2 second-round picks, Omari. So they did that. Real quick here, Michael says, hi, guys. Greetings from Warsaw, Poland.
What time is it, Mike?
Mike, what time is it? Yes. Michael, we will answer your question also after the next break. Shawn will have to get out of here. We'll talk about that. And Blog, okay, let's get into it. Yeah, because it'll give you a chance to talk off-season stuff. Blog Piston says, hi, guys. Greetings from Spain. Detroit basketball is back. So showing the wide range, the worldwide, like Pitbull says. Yes, just like Pitbull. Okay, Shawn, we did a lot of off-season stuff last week with the mailbag because we got a lot of questions. Interesting your thoughts, and this could get you to talk. Oh, it's 23:22, so just before midnight on Tuesday. So that would be what? 9 hours ahead. 9 for me, 8 for you guys. So
6.
Okay.
It's 5:30 as we speak.
Oh, 6.
And
yeah,
it's he's saying it's almost 11:30.
Yeah, my bad.
That's okay.
Really bad math from the teacher over here. Hopefully they don't fire me. Michael, a question regarding, so I teach science. A lot of math and science, so still don't fire me. A question regarding off-season beyond. It seems considering cap situation, the best way forward is to re-sign Beasley, THJ, probably Schröder as both players and trade assets. Do you agree? So what are your thoughts here? We don't have to get into the real thick weeds, Shawn, but on Beasley coming back, THJ, etc.
As long as they can make it work with the guy, I think they definitely need Beasley back. Not the shooting and everything else he's done, right? Just the joy. And even Hardaway Jr., I know he's been scuffling a little bit lately with his shooting, but these guys are all so young outside of those few vets. I would, assuming they can make the numbers work, I would run it back with Ivy. Jalen Duren was pulling the ball off the board and taking it the length of the court and finding shooters, right? I mean, he's finishing sometimes too. And I'm not just talking about, yes, he's throwing some lobs to Thompson on the break, and those are fun and they're great. He's actually finding shooters. Thompson takes the ball off the board. He had a play last night. It didn't lead to a bucket, but he ripped up the left side and found Hardaway in the right corner for a wide open three because he pushed the pace and saw it by half court, maybe before. It's just these guys are playing in a way that feels classic, but somehow new, where maybe they don't shoot like the Celtics, and they probably won't ever shoot like that, or some of these other teams. But, the Thunder don't shoot all that well either. They got an incredible bucket getter, a shooter or two, really, really good defenders, and they're all together. And
Houston too.
Yeah, Houston too. It just feels like they've got pieces that speak to several different eras in this league, and that somehow still feel new and fresh, and they're young. And I would say, let's see what we really, really got. And I think you need at least another year for that. These guys are in their early 20s.
Yeah, you just keep it going, right? Like, what has Memphis done over the last few years? What has OKC done over the last few years? They just keep adding guys in the late first round or early second round. And, those teams have found, gems in the draft every single year, even with the guys in front of them. If I'm Trajan, I'm probably not looking to do anything drastically different from that other than add assets, right?
And if you can't get past a certain point, you get to playoffs. I don't know that they're probably getting out of the first round this year, but who knows? But maybe you go 2-3 year stretch and you feel like you're capped at a certain point and you need to mix it up. Then you go get Mark Aguirre, or you get Rasheed Wallace or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know, Luka Doncic. No, that's not going to happen. But you know what I mean? That you give it a little bit of time, and then you say, okay, this is what I think our cap is. And then you figure out how to go get a radical piece that will let you keep your foundation, but also change some things. They're nowhere close to that to me.
Well, let me ask you this offseason, do you just go ahead and lock in Ivy and Duren for as long as you can? And, is that just the strategy? Like, at this point, it seems like all these guys have shown enough to where you feel pretty good about them.
Assuming the price is right, and I think it probably would be. Yeah, I mean, I know it's a smaller sample size with Ivy, but he was shooting, 41% over 2 months?
Yeah, he had he was like 6 for 9 for 3 or something crazy in the game he got hurt in.
Yeah, no, it didn't. And that was not the first time he'd done that they were close to that this season. But it's not just that. What else? Okay, so the speed, getting to the rim, yes, I know, I'm with Bryce. He needs to finish better at some point. But the guy's a worker who's fearless, who had a couple of game winners, I want to say this year, he had one against when Cunningham didn't play. Was that Atlanta? He beat Atlanta earlier in the season, and then what he did against the Kings, maybe that wasn't quite a game winner, but it should have been, or it's close enough. So you see those intangibles, then you see, physically, and then you see the shooting come along. Absolutely, I would see what you can do with him.
I got a question here. This is interesting from Keith Jefferson. If they were able to keep their main assets next season, so let's essentially say they run it back in. I'm not against this idea because I think it's a little bit harder to make a real addition that makes a real difference anyway. And if you're not going to do that, then I think you just bring this team back. And I was team like, hey, maybe they go make a splash this offseason. I'm kind of pushing that back now to next deadline as we continue to get data on some of these guys and how successful they are with just what they have. What would the starting lineup be next year if everybody was healthy? I mean, I think Cade and Duren, obviously. I think Ausar is unquestionably. I think Ivy has to be. So then it comes down to, do you start Tobias, or do you kind of let Ausar play the pseudo 4 and you start Tim Hardaway Jr. or something? I don't think Keith actually says Cade, Hardaway, Ausar, Tobias, and JD. I think the question actually comes down to, is it Tobias or Tim Hardaway Jr.? What do you think, Shawn?
I don't think you can take Thompson out.
No.
From here on, he might be their second best player right now. I know that's crazy to say, but he might be.
Like, we talk about the big plays of Ausar. Sorry to cut you off. There was 2 times last night where I looked at my laptop and blinked that he was already back on defense. Like, there's even small stuff like that where he might take away 2 or 3 fast breaks a night just from teleporting back on defense.
No, it's
there was about 5 last night, by the way.
Yeah.
Like at least 5. I have them all in the breakdown.
He just teleports and he's there.
It's just, and then again, we've talked about what he's starting to do offensively, and I don't think he has to have to shoot. You want to know the splash they might make? We'll see. Ron Holland, who we have not mentioned this whole podcast. What if he's the guy? I think you and I have talked about this before, Bryce. If that guy starts shooting, then look out.
And he's already made an in-season improvement too.
No, but if he becomes the shooter,
yeah,
then that 5 is, yeah, that's something.
Yeah, it's interesting, Keith, questioning whether the Hardaway shooter come back. Go ahead and put that in the chat, Keith. I'm curious why. My assumption is they operate as an over-the-cap team. They get Beasley on the non-tax MLE, and then you can sign what you need, Hardaway and Schröder for what you need to with their bird rights and all of that. So, but yeah, Shawn, before we get you out of here, any other thoughts on this run? Omari and I are going to keep talking after this break, and we're going to talk about stuff looking forward. Maybe that's the best way to get you out of here. What are your thoughts as they go into the final? What are we at? Not very good math for me. So if it's 24 games of the season, they're sitting right now in what place? 6th place, game back of 4th place. What are your thoughts as things go down the stretch?
Yeah, that's crazy, right? I think they're 2 games back in the loss column, right? From 5th and 4th.
Yes.
Milwaukee and Indiana.
With both teams. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee and Indiana are both tied in terms of losses.
Yep.
Real quickly, that's the listener may be right about Hardaway Jr. and Schröder, whether you can bring them both back. And that's tough. If I don't know what kind of Hardaway Jr. has won them games this year, right? He has.
Yeah.
Yeah,
overtime against Miami, right?
That's it. That's one example. He's made big shots late, and he's made shots early when everybody else is struggle to find offense to keep him from falling too far behind. No, he's been good, but then Schröder, you see the difference he makes. So that's, I don't know, maybe they have to replace one of them. But first of all, we're going to find out a lot. By the time I think folks listen to this, we'll see what they will have done against Boston, right? And see if they were competitive the first time they played them. I want to say it fell way behind and then actually came back and took the lead late, right? And then that's before they were still learning how to they didn't know how to win. That was really early in the season, right? Wasn't it the first few games, Omari?
Yeah.
So I want to see if they can compete, they can get a little sharp because they have to be sharper defensively with communication and focus. You saw last night, Derek Jones, right?
Yep, Derek Jones here.
Got behind several times. One, and you could probably see this, Omari. Cade, first it was Malik Beasley. He just got in La Land, and I could hear Bickerstaff from across the arena. And I'm not going to repeat the language here, but he was basically saying, wake up. Maybe with an expletive in there, right? And then Cunningham a few possessions later, as same idea. His turn and Jones cut, and it was a dunk, a lob dunk, I think. And he got into Cade, which I was actually like, that's good. That's good. So those little things, that is not going to work against Boston. So, right, to me, that's room for improvement is the defensive communication. We saw that a little bit against Atlanta. And then I want to see Duren against Jokic. I mean, obviously it's not going to, that's not a great matchup for him. It's not a great matchup for anybody except for apparently Jared Vanderbilt now with the Lakers, who did that. But yeah, no, you want to see them keep beating the teams. Now we kind of think they should beat. And then how competitive are they going to be against the elite teams in the league? Because they've got some of those games left.
It's a really interesting schedule. I had mentioned pre-All-Star break, these 5 games out of the All-Star break. They've won 3 of them. They get Boston. You mentioned Jokic. For those that haven't looked that far ahead, the Nuggets are the next game after that. Then they kind of go back and forth like tough games, quote unquote, easy games. And then they end the season, Cleveland, Minnesota, OKC, Toronto, Memphis, Sacramento, New York, Bucks. All of a sudden, Bucks to end the season may be fascinating in terms of playoff seeding. So
like impromptu playoff games, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so much fun that we're not talking with Shawn about the offseason or trying to talk about draft prospects or anything like that. We're talking about this season, the stretch run, playoff seeding, some of that. So interesting from Keith here. Boston will be on a back-to-back tomorrow, so they may rest a player. So we'll see what that looks like on Wednesday. Shawn, I know we got to get you out of here. If you guys are watching live, we're going to go to our quote-unquote short break, and we'll come back. So we're going to stay here. But Shawn, thank you so much. As the chat said, it's not just your awesome voice to listen to. The content you provide is amazing as well.
It's always so much fun to be with you guys. I'm assuming, I don't want to assume, but hopefully we'll do this again before the end of the season.
Absolutely, Shawn.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime you want.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much for us to talk about. We'll probably have you on board once before the season's over. So, and
then when they get into a playoff series, that's when it's really going to be fun. You have to join us when we get into a playoff series after 2 games, and then we can decide. That'll
be great. That'll be great. Last quick thought on my ridiculous bad boys. I don't want to say comparison, but bringing them up, they had a stretch big. This team does not yet. So, right. and they have one of the original stretch bigs in the league. So that's a big difference.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Thank you, Shawn. Everybody else, we will be right back after this short break.
All right, we are back with segment 3, and we're going to look ahead because the Pistons have some difficult games coming up. They have Boston and Denver this week. You have Brooklyn kind of sandwiched in between, and then next week you're on the road against Utah, the Clippers again, in their brand new arena, and then you have the Warriors, who now have Jimmy Butler, so that's a very different team compared to earlier this season, and then Portland, and they played a little bit better. Yep. So Pistons have won 7 straight, but Bryce, let's just get your initial thoughts on the next 2 weeks and what you hope to see from this team, because that's obviously probably one of the most difficult stretches they've had all year.
Yeah, man, it's about the consistency at this point, and not the consistency of being a competitive team, right? Like, that's what we talked about for the first half of the season or whatever. Like, okay, this team responds in situations, and this team doesn't give up, and this team is sneaking out wins and all of that. Now it's like, okay, we're past that already. Now it's like this team is legitimately good. I purposely use legitimately because somebody was inside joke with the chat here, but they are good. They are a good basketball team, Omari. And I don't know that there's any way around it at this point, being 6 games over 500 and having
21-9 since December 21st. Like, it's February 25th. That's like 9 weeks of good.
1.1 net. Like, everybody uses the last 10 games, and I'll rattle those off as well, but they're 1.1 on the season. Like, the entire season. That is the sample size, right? You want large sample size? Well, they've given us 58 games of sample, and they are 4th in offensive. Well, NBA.com and B-Ball reference is a little bit different, but top 15 in both. Over the last 10 games, though, 11.7 net rating for our Detroit Pistons. And over
which is because they smacked 4 or 5 teams in a row silly. So
in the last 5 games, they're a 16.9 net rating. So this is what I want to see. It's been a 10-game sample of this team being good, a legitimately good NBA basketball team, and Cade Cunningham being legitimate all-NBA, like some crazy talk with him. What does it look like now? How do they handle success, Omari, right? Because this is different than it was at the start of the season. How do you handle national people tweeting about you, talking about you, podcasting about you? So that will be interesting, the consistency of it now.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting, because they've been in this space for a little bit now. And, and there's always that point when a team first starts winning where it's like, okay, like when is this team going to crash back to earth, or, when are they going to regress, I guess, quote unquote, regress back to the mean? And it feels like for this team, we've already gotten past that point, right? Like, to come out of All-Star and you went in running a 4-game winning streak, and then you come out on the road, you take care of business in San Antonio. Well, I guess in Austin, technically, but against San Antonio, you take care of business in Atlanta, and then you come back home immediately and you take care of the Clippers. And like, the games you have coming up are tougher than those games, right? At least as far as the quality of competition.
Well, what happened too was Wemby got hurt, and then the Clippers didn't play everybody. And I didn't want to bring that up because I don't want to discredit what the Pistons have done. It is true though, they didn't get the healthiest of teams in a couple of those games.
But you still won games that you're expected to win. Whilst, you're off All-Star weekend, but still, that was your 3rd game in 4 nights last night. And a tough game. That game felt like it was going at 0.7 or something. I don't know what it was. It just felt like it that game went so long. And so they're winning, long story short, they're winning the games that on paper they should be winning. And for 2 months, they have pretty much won almost every single game you would expect them to win on paper. And some of the losses have been the more coin flip type games, like against Indiana, where it's okay, that's they may compete, but that's a game that they very well could lose. So if they haven't shown anything yet, I guess it's over the next 2 weeks. You have another West Coast swing. You've already done well on the road. You've actually been really good on the road. It's just more evidence, right? Can you continue to keep this going? Because essentially you could get to the middle of March with playoffs wrapped up, already on pace to win 3 times last season. So can you keep that motor going as well, I guess, right? when you get to the point to where you've already surpassed any reasonable expectation, like, can you keep that momentum going at that point as well?
YouTube user Bryce is guaranteed Cade is all NBA on multiple pods now. I'm going to do it again. Oh, guaranteed. Oh, my bad. I messed it up. Guaranteed. Listen, I'm going to do it again on Sunday. We're doing, I don't know, three-quarter of the season, whatever, awards on Game Theory. I can pretty much guarantee that Cade Cunningham will be all NBA. No, I will guarantee he's on all NBA. And listen, I think there's a good chance he's on my second team all NBA. Cade Cunningham is all NBA right now. There's no question. And here's what someone said to me.
26-10-7 or 26-10-6. Yeah.
Wes will attest to this. I hate the word objective, and I will not use it here. But it's really hard not to to hear an argument that Cade Cunningham is not all NBA as things sit on February 25th. And I will not use objective because I can't stand when people use that word. But listen, and what people say is, well, is Cade Cunningham, when you talk about second team all NBA, is he a top 10 player in the league? That's not what all NBA is, O2, right? All NBA takes out players that are hurt and hasn't played a certain number of games. And so is that a factor in this? Absolutely. I don't care. He's all NBA right now. He's been incredible. I want to touch on this real quick because I do think it's important to this conversation. Our guy Kevin brings up second unit was so impressive, late third, early fourth. And if that continues going forward from a health perspective, less minutes the starters, quote unquote, have to play. So I looked this up. Do you know who the only player on the Pistons is that's playing? There's only two players on the Pistons playing more than 30 minutes a night. Do you know who they are?
Cade and Tobias.
Yeah. Cade, which is crazy impressive that he's played 53 games this year, averaging 36 minutes. Sounds like a lot, right? Do you know that actually is just 20th in the NBA? It's not like they're the Knicks, okay? Tobias is at 32. Nobody else is over 30. Tim Hardaway at 28. Beasley 27.5. Duran 25.8. Ausar at 21. Stu under 20. Schröder's playing under 20 in his minutes with Detroit. These guys are healthy, but they are also not just playing. It's not the Knicks where every single player is playing 30 plus minutes a night. I mean, I think they're going to have the injury. Whoa, hope that wasn't Freudian, knock on wood. I think they're going to have the energy and the legs down the stretch to keep this thing going.
Yeah, I think they will too. Like, it's just clear this team really enjoys playing basketball. And that's, I think that's like the key ingredient, right? Like, if these guys want to be on the floor, they like winning, they like playing together, then that motor's not going to run out. Like, especially since they just all got here. This isn't like this might be the first season in a while where it's like, we're not going to be shutting down all of our vets. I think they shut down Bogey by March 10th, one year. Like, we're not going to be seeing that as much. Like, these guys want to be on the floor. They want to play, and they do have something to prove, right? So I don't know. Like, we have this speculation of, can I keep it going? But I'd be shocked if they didn't. It just seems like we've already gotten past the point to where we're wondering if this team has that type of motor issue.
Okay, let's talk about standing stuff. Wes drops an interesting nugget in here. 24 games left. They are 15 quote unquote wins away from clinching a play-in spot. That quote unquote wins is any combination of a Pistons win and a Bulls or net loss that adds up to 15. So it could be, Wes, let me know if that's for both or just one or whatever. But let's go through this real quick, Omari. Do we think the Pistons 15.5 back of the Cleveland Cavaliers? We don't think they catch the Cavs, right? We can agree on that?
No. I mean, yeah, well, they won that. We can agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They're 9.5 back of the Celtics. We don't think they're going to catch the Celtics.
Probably not.
Okay. The Knicks, 5.5. I would say probably not.
It's, but that's when you start to get within the, realm. This and that could happen, and maybe.
Okay. Let's say
it's not insurmountable.
Let's say probably not, so we can get to the meat and potatoes. As I mentioned earlier, one game back of both the Bucks and the Pacers, 2 games in the loss column, have the same number of wins. Behind the Pistons, the Magic are 3.5 back in 7th. The Hawks are 5 back in 8th, as are the Heat in 9. And then the Bulls are 9 back, as I kind of outlined there just a second ago. Where does this team end up, Omari?
And I'm glad you said this because, I've gotten the question a few times over the last week. Do I think the Pistons make the playoffs? We're way beyond that point. They're making the playoffs. The question is...
Oh, no. We're getting postseason play.
Yeah, like we're getting if anybody,
your first time ever as a beat writer, right?
Yeah, we're just way past them. If anybody has any questions, if they're going to make the play, they are making the playoffs. The only question is,
they're making the postseason. They're making the postseason.
Yeah, they're making the postseason. It's just do they get in as like the 6th seed or 7th seed, and I'm sorry, the 6th seed and avoid the play-in altogether, or are you in that 7 through 10 and you have playing it? But they're going to be in. They're 9 games over the Bulls, who are 10. I don't know what the math is, but they're not going to fall out of that. Especially with the way that this Bulls team is built right now. So yeah, baby. I mean, the way that they've been playing, it's just hard to see how they're not at least 7. Maybe Orlando gets hot underneath them. You have a couple teams underneath them that are still good teams and could get hot late. Especially with Paolo back. But do I think they fall lower than 7? It's just tough for me to see that, especially, I mean, they're as hot as any team in the league. They're the hottest team right now. They have 7 straight wins. It's just tough to see how that reverses with 7-ish weeks of the season left.
Okay, so let's look at strength of schedule. The team right in front of them, 0-2, the Milwaukee Bucks. Guess what strength of schedule, or I guess one of the teams right in front of them, guess what their strength of schedule is to close out the season?
What is it?
It is the toughest in the Eastern Conference and the 5th toughest in the entire NBA, including those 2 games at the end of the season that we already mentioned. The Knicks, 3rd toughest schedule in the Eastern Conference down the stretch. The Pistons actually have the 5th, the Magic just a couple spots behind them, and then the Pacers right there. I'm with you. I don't think this team ends up dropping below 7th. I had reserved saying that they were going to be a playoff team and not a play-in team, because I thought as Orlando got healthy, they would be, I thought Orlando would probably jump them. I don't know if I believe that anymore. Not with the 3 games we just saw them play, not with how bad Orlando struggles to score. It's just, I'm not sure. So I think 7 is the low point. I guess 4 is legit, right? It's 1 game. The Bucks have a tough schedule. I don't love that Bucks team. The Pacers seem to be a little up and down. Where would you put money if you had to right now on where it lands?
I would just probably stick with them right at 6. I think the teams ahead of them are better. I think the teams behind them are either in the same realm or worse. But with the cushions the Pistons have, they're really in control of their own fate at this point, right? To me, it's probably more likely that they end up catching a team like Indiana than they do fall substantially behind where they are now.
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking about this today. Wes, I want you to answer this, and everybody in the chat, I would love for you to answer this as well. Just in a vacuum, I'm not asking you to pick the Pistons or the Magic, okay? I want to be clear. I'm not asking you to pick the Pistons or the Magic. I'm asking you to pick Team A or Team B based on these offensive and defensive ratings, okay? This is B-ball reference. Would you rather be the team with an offensive rating of 14 and a defensive rating of 11th, or the team that has an offensive rating that is 28 and a defensive rating of 2nd? Which of those would you rather be, Omari? The team that's a little bit right in the middle of both, a little above average in both, or the team that's really bad in one, but really, really good in the other?
You want to be the team that's closer to the middle of both, because that shows that you have more ways to problem solve. If I'm the 2nd team, I think I know who that 2nd team is. If you have a night where you can't buy a stop, then you're pretty much cooked, right? So you definitely want to be the team that could win a shootout if you need to win one.
I get a lot of A's. First one, more balanced team. Wes actually would rather be the team that's elite on one side of the ball. This is the Pistons versus the Magic. Orlando, they cannot score. For as good as Paolo and Franz are, they really, really struggle to score. So yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting. I don't have any other team stats here. We kind of went through the standings. Any other thoughts? Anything you're looking for going forward? Anything like that as we go down the stretch?
It's really just them continuing to evolve in the ways that they have. What do you see from Duran continuing to step up as a playmaker and just defender, right? I want to see Ausar with more on ball reps and continue to be whatever he is on defense. I don't know what the right word is. Just everywhere all at once, right? Kind of like the movie. Just just keeping things where they've been going. I think they've hit all the right notes. They've already surpassed any reasonable expectation that we've had for them going in. So 24 games left. How many of these do they capture? And, do they crack 40 wins? And do they end up avoiding the play-in all together? I think that's what they have in front of them right now.
Steven, caution. The last time they went 7 wins in a row, 2014-15, they did miss the playoffs. Well, we got to ruin the vibe, Steve. No, I'm joking. I always appreciate the engagement. Matthew from Brazil. Let's go. I actually messed up the time stuff earlier in the episode, so you have to go listen to that. I had my math wrong. It wasn't 02 this time. I think that'll do it for this episode. Again, I want to shout out Omari is putting out crazy content. I loved your tweet the other day, Omari, about how did you provide content and what did you write about when this team was losing all the time compared to what you're getting now? But also, I would love, 1952 there, so it's 7:52. So just a couple hours ahead for you, a few hours for me. I would love for you guys to go check out the Motor City Hoops Substack. If you're here live, literally in 8 minutes, my Ausar Thompson video breakdown of the game against the Clippers will drop. In the meantime, you can go check out my guy Harry from the Order of the Blazing Horse. He gives his Slept on the Pistons recaps, and there's all sorts of stuff over there on the Motor City Hoops Substack, all for free, guys, completely free for you guys to read. And then, of course, the stuff on the Free Press with Omari and the pin down on Detroit Bad Boys with Wes and Blake. O2, anything else before you take us out of here?
That's all I got. I think you covered everything. But big thanks, as always, for everybody, for tapping in with us this week. Definitely nice to, we haven't had any discussion of a draft episode or at all. So that's kind of what I told you the other week. We're in uncharted waters.
Omari, I'm worthless. My draft work will not play on the Pistons Pulse this season. It's kind of disheartening, but it's also awesome.
We're gonna have a draft opportunity at some point. We're gonna get to it, and all of your efforts would not be wasted, Bryce, because we have to utilize our in-house resident draft expert here.
Hold on. Matthew says, I still don't know what sizzling means. What's the best way to explain this? So it's
just hot,
like on a hot stretch, if things are going well.
It's like on a skillet. Skillet's hot, so it sizzles.
Yeah, so that's
Cade was hot, so he was sizzling.
That's the technical term, and then people use it in sports realm of Cade hits, Beasley hits 4 threes in a row, he's sizzling or something like that. So
yeah.
Chuck says, our only pick at the moment is 38th from Toronto, so not much to plan. Yeah, like that. I know there's a lot of conversation that's gone around about another second round pick. My understanding is there is one. Detroit has the 1 second round pick. It is from Toronto. So not to hate on Toronto, but the more the Raptors lose, the better. I see you wearing the Pistons Pulse hoodie. I respect it. Let's go. I can't wear mine because I get too hot in the room because there's no fan or anything, so I don't ever wear it. In here, I wear it, but not to record.
We got to get you a Pistons Post t-shirt. I'm going to tweet out the link for
I have one as well, so.
Yeah, I'm going to tweet out the link for our Pistons Post merch, by the way, just because we haven't done it in a while.
We haven't for a while, yeah. You guys probably got some new listeners and followers and viewers, so it'd be a good time. So the chat was amazing, guys. Truly one of our best chats. Everybody kept it respectful, legit, really good content, all of that stuff. Really, really, really good stuff. Mickey, I don't think Danny Wolf will be there at 38. That might be wrong. Okay, Omari, for real this time, you can take it away.
All right. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. And with that, big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Every Nichols, and big shout out to Wes Davenport as always. And we'll talk to you all next week.